All right, so keep that little video of Ron and Leslie in the back of your mind when we're going to get to the parties. But before we get to a very, very simple little description of each party, we're going to look at functions of political parties. There are 7 functions within political parties. You're going to need to be able to know what these are, recognize them. They elect candidates. They're involving people in the political process. They operate the government. They dispense patronage. They develop and implement policy. They educate the public. And they act as a government watchdog. Bam, we're done. You know it already, right? We'll expand it. Don't worry. They work hard for loyalty and want members to vote straight party ticket. This means when a ticket, when a ticket shows up to the voter on election day and they're going to go vote, they vote only one party. So if they're a Republican, if they're a Democrat, they're just going to look at it and say, well, this person I'm a Republican, so I'm going to vote Republican, Republican, Republican. Person says I'm Democrat, I'm going to go Dem, 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 Dem. Now, this very much helps the political party because when they know that they have a straight party ticket voter, they can count on them for everything. Some people, especially moderates, don't actually do that because they have some political views on both sides. So they might do a little bit more research within each candidate and say, no, this is the issue I think and more, and this person relates to what I believe more. So, not everybody does a straight party ticket, and I highly encourage you to actually do the research for every candidate. Because not everybody, you might be closer to some candidates without even knowing it if you don't do the research. Alright, so let's break it down. Electing candidates. They have to recruit men and women who can win. You're not going to recruit somebody that can't really win an election. It's not going to be good. Help raise money for campaigns. Campaigns are expensive, especially when you're talking about running national campaigns. You have to get videos out. You got to get commercials out. You have to have an online presence. It requires a lot of manpower and a lot of volunteer hours and a lot of money. Manage the get out the vote effort. This is always going to happen. Coming around election time, you're going to see people saying, get out the vote, trying to help people register for vote. They want you to participate so that you can vote for them. Run the party's election apparatus. This means the nominations, the primaries, the caucuses, and the general election. If you are a volunteer with a political party, you're going to help run a lot of different things because they require a lot of volunteers because there's so much to do. They can't pay everybody. Organize rallies, meetings to generate enthusiasms. You want to get people hyped up. They're going to get hyped people. This is really, really important when they're running for the nomination of something because you want to get as many people because that's when you might have 3 or 4 candidates and they're trying to get that party's nomination for a particular office. So the Democrats and Republicans, when they have people running for president, you have your nomination process where you have all of your eligible candidates and they're competing against each other, trying to let the party know that they're going to be the best one to win this election, and here's the reason why. And they might have different takes on different issues. So in general, the parties then goes to the primaries or the caucuses, depending on the state, and then they select who is going to take them all the way to the general election. And then they also involve people in the political process. Party activities, provide individuals with a way to get involved in the political process. They don't want you to just be hanging out on the sidelines, not being involved with anything. They want to get you the opportunity to affect government. Volunteers help register voters. They post signs. They donate money. You will start seeing signs coming up on election time in the lawns, like, hey, vote for this person, or I support this person. Bumper stickers, getting all that stuff out. They operate the government. Political parties do. Even though they're not part of the government, they help run it. The United States can be described as a government by the party. Whichever party is in charge is kind of currently running it. Parties help staff executive and legislative levels of government. We'll get to how some of those get them soon. Legislative branches is organized along party lines. Even where they sit in the House of Representatives and in Congress is based on their party. You have the Democrats that sit on the left and the Republicans that sit on the right, if you're looking at it. This actually comes all the way from France when they started doing it like that, which is why we call it the political left and the political right. Party line voting. They try to get their party to stick with their party votes because it means that they're going to have a better job of winning. Dispensing patronage. Patronage means rewards, which pretty much just means they're giving out candy. Not exactly, but rewards to party members for being loyal supporters. Hey, you have been a loyal supporter of this party for 10 years now, and you've helped all these volunteers, you've organized stuff. Well, let me help you in some way. Sometimes this means government jobs. It could mean contracts. It could mean legislation that's going to help your type of company in the future. This is where it is good to be a part of a political party for a long time because you have shown that you support them, that they can count on you, and you get rewards for doing that. Developing and implementing policies with the party ideology. Now, Republicans and Democrats from 100 to 150 years ago aren't exactly the same as they are today. It changes over time. When those changes happen, they have to inform the public also. And then they work to pass legislation that incorporates these policies and ideology. So, over time, certain things change. So your society changes, your beliefs change. Now, these parties, we refer to them as having been around for a while, and Republicans and Democrats are, but usually every generation or two, there's some pretty big shifts in the parties that happen. Educating the public. How does the government work? What are the party policies? What is the government doing? That's another role of political parties. And last but not least, government watchdog. This can feel at times as if the political party that's not in charge is always complaining because they're the minority party. But they help keep the majority party in check. If the majority party is doing something that the minority party doesn't think is right, they are going to call them out. They're going to be a watchdog. They're going to start barking. So, for somebody that's just kind of watching politics, it might seem like, why does the minority party in charge, the one that just lost the election, why are they always complaining? Sometimes they are just complaining. People don't like to lose. But they also have a responsibility of making sure that the party in charge does not just start running away and getting away with a bunch of stuff, because that's not how it works. You got to have somebody to call them. So, even after all of this stuff that political parties do, try to help the public, get people out to vote, there's still a problem. Why don't people vote? And how can people increase voter turnout? I'm not going to give you the answers right now because we're going to talk about it in class, but we'll come back to it. So now let's go look at the political parties. Now, I want to give you guys a little example, okay? The political parties, let's call this the political spectrum on the bottom here, all right? So you have Democrats. They're about right here. You have Republicans. You're about right here. Now, if you have a liberal ideology, put an L right there, that means you are left-leaning of center. Let's just call this center right here. All right? So you're left-leaning of center. If you have conservative ideologies, you are right-leaning of center. So liberal is to the left, conservative is to the right. You have Democrats that are somewhere along this line. They are away from the middle, but not completely super far to the left. Republicans are on the right, and you have them a little bit kind of all over. As moderates are going to show up in the middle. They're usually going to be somewhere around here. They have a belief system that has some liberal tendencies, some conservative, so there's no real generalization. It just kind of depends on whatever they're looking at. So let's briefly look at some of these parties, and then I'll make another scale again. The Green Party, they are more liberal than Democrats. So when we're talking about this line, okay, if Democrats are here on the political spectrum, Green Party is usually going to be even more liberal than that. They focus on environmental issues, but they do have a platform for every major issue, so they are not a single issue party anymore. They started as a single issue party, but they have expanded. Green parties do pretty well in local elections, sometimes at state elections, but it's still a very, very small party. Democrats, they're liberal. Larger government is some of the party platforms they believe in. Increased minimum wage, support unions, climate change is a threat, lower military spending. Those are some of the platforms that they believe in or that they have opinions on at every level of local, state, and federal government. Hopefully you have heard of the Democratic Party because it's one of the two main political parties. Libertarian, personal responsibility and minimal government intrusion in people's lives is what they believe in. They oppose most regulation. They support government-run military, though. Usually they're the third largest party at various levels of government today. That might change in the future. An example, libertarians kind of ride the line between being conservative and liberal. So for example, they're more fiscally conservative, meaning they don't want the government, they want lower taxes, they don't want the government to be involved in your money. But on a social issue like gay marriage, they are very liberal because they don't believe the government should come in and say, hey, this is who you can and can't marry. They think that's not a role for the government. They want as little government involvement as possible. They want liberty. You can think of it that way. Now, that is not to be confused with being liberal, which is just left-leaning on the political spectrum. Then we have Republicans. They're going to be conservative. They believe in smaller government, lower taxes, restrictions on unions, free market economy, and reduced reliance on others. They are at every level of local, state, and federal government. And I hope you've heard of them as well because they're the second main political party in America. You got the Republicans and you got the Democrats, usually in charge, and they've always been the presidents. And one note on these political platforms, just because they, like Republicans, believe in restrictions on unions doesn't mean Democrats won't put restrictions on unions. This is a very, very simplified version and a very simple look at the platform with each party. And then you have the Constitutional Party, which is more conservative than Republicans. So you have the Green that's more liberal than Democrats. You have the Constitutional Party that's more conservative than Republicans. They want to abolish most federal taxes. They want to make English the official language, strict immigration and marriage laws. A lot of their stuff also is very direct and strict reading and interpretation of the Constitution, part of their name. So, if we wanted to go back and look at these as a political spectrum, all right, I tried to organize these so that you pretty much can just pull them down onto a line like this. Now, also, each color of the background slide, Democrats are usually considered blue, Republicans red, Libertarians yellow, green, Constitutional brown. So, that is generally where they fall. Liberals, I will say though, or Libertarian, excuse me, does not necessarily fall smack in the middle. They can be all the way over here. You can have, because Libertarian is so, there's just their main general principles are limited government. That is usually much more of a conservative side, so usually they fall over here. But they do have some very strong liberal beliefs as well. So it's hard, you can't really just pin them down and say, here they are in the middle with moderates, because they don't really necessarily fit. There can be libertarians that feel that they're in the middle of the political spectrum because they have conservative and liberal ideologies, but it could kind of be anywhere. So, just because also somebody says they're liberal or conservative does not necessarily mean that they are a Democrat or Republican. It just usually indicates that that is the political ideology side that they lean on.